Hi, I'm Alex. It's Bedtime Stories. Let's get comfy and listen to the wonderful tales we found to help you get ready for bed.
Clangers. Granny and Small. Planet Earth, our home, where new experiences happen to each and every one of us. Big adventures like climbing the highest mountain, and small adventures like having a ride on a bus. And as we travel across the vastness of space, to here, the Clangers planet, new adventures are awaiting too. Shall we go and see? Ah, here's Small Clanger. I wonder what he's up to. Ah, Small wants Tiny to play with him. Tiny will play later. Right now she's busy teaching her singing flowers a new song. Now it looks like Small's going to see Major Clanger. Small wants to know if Major would like to do something with him. Major's busy inventing. Maybe later. Ah, Mother Clanger is counting out her seeds. Maybe Small can do something with her. Poor Small. Mother Clanger's busy too, just like Major Clanger and Tiny. Good idea. Why doesn't Small go and see Granny Clanger? They can have some clanger time together. Small's right. Granny just seems to like sleeping and knitting. But yes, maybe there is more to Granny than meets the eye. Or maybe not. Granny is fast asleep with her knitting on her lap. Oh, she's woken up. Granny Clanger would like to know what Small wants. Small tells Granny that he came to see her, so they might do something together. He's tried everyone else. Granny thinks it's a lovely idea. He can help her tidy her knitting cupboard. But it doesn't look like that is what Small had in mind. Oops! There goes a ball of wool right onto Granny's head. Ha ha! Granny Clanger's got a new woolly hairdo. And now Small has a woolly hairdo too. There's a ball of wool on his head. Ha 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 ha! What a pair of funny clangers! There is more to Granny than meets the eye. Now they just have to put all the wool back neatly into the cupboard. Job done. Everything tidy. Ah, Small wants to know if Granny Clanger does anything else apart from knitting. Of course she does. It would seem Granny Clanger does do other things. She's taking Small on a journey with a packed lunch. Because she's taking Small on an adventure. Ah! Here are our adventurers. Granny on her skis and Small on the scooter, ready to get going. Granny Clanger is taking Small somewhere very, very special. Ah, here they are. Granny has stopped right by a big boulder. Small wants to know what's so special about this place. Small is helping Granny push the boulder. It's very heavy. Well, look at that. There's a cave under the boulder they've moved, and they're going down into it. Granny tells Small she used to come here when she was a little girl. Granny's showing Small all the pictures she drew on the cave walls when she was little. It's Granny's special wishing cave. All you have to do is touch the star on the wall, then wish for something your heart desires. I think Small's going to make a wish. Small wishes he had something to eat. Small is very hungry. Yes, Small's wish has come true. Granny has a packed lunch for them both. Granny isn't going to make a wish. She's done everything she's ever wanted to. Small's right. There must be something Granny wants. She can't have done everything. Well, Granny does have one wish, but Small might think it's silly. Granny's putting her hand on the wishing star. She's making a wish. That is a big wish. Granny wants to be a little clanger again, so she can play like she did as a child. I think Small has an idea. Small is telling Granny to close her eyes. I think Granny and Small are playing a game of tag. Fancy that! Well done, Granny Clanger. You caught Small. Now he's it. What fun! What a great game! That's nice. Playing tag did make her feel like a young clanger again. Oh, Small hasn't finished yet. But what are they up to? They're drawing on the ground with sticks. Well, they're certainly making something. They've drawn lines everywhere. And now Small wants Granny to follow him. This is all very mysterious. Ah, they're off to the music boat. Yes, Granny can fly the music boat. There is definitely more to her than meets the eye. But where are they going? Wow! From up in the sky, Small shows Granny what they've drawn on the ground. A big picture of themselves. Small has discovered that his granny is amazing. She's done so many things in her life and still has more adventures to come. More adventures with her family and friends. Because the best adventures, big and little, are the ones that are shared with those you love.
This is the sound of story time. And now, a story from 5 Minutes More.
Whose turn is it to tell a story today? Will it be Louisa? Will it be Florrie? Will it be Sam? Or will it be Georgie?
Or it might be you, far away.
It might. Please, will you stay?
Just for 5 minutes more.
5 minutes more, 5 minutes more. It's time for a story, so stay for 5 minutes more.
It's my turn to tell a story today. Storybooks are the most wonderful things, and the best place to find storybooks is in a library. This is Charlie. He loves books.
Wow, how amazing! I've never seen so many books. I don't know which one to read first.
Shh! This is a library.
Charlie likes to read stories aloud, in a very loud voice.
Once upon a time, there was a wizard and a giant who...
Shh! This is a library.
Sorry. Once upon a time, there was a wizard and a giant who lived in a castle. Now, one day, the wizard was walking along when he met a huge, hairy monster. Ooh!
Shh!
Oh, sorry.
I see the problem. You have to be quiet when you go into a library.
That's right, Faraway, but Charlie kept forgetting. He was so excited when he was reading the stories, his voice grew louder and louder.
A huge, hairy monster with orange spots, and he spoke in a funny, squeaky voice like this. Hello, Mr. Wizard!
Shh! We can't read our own stories with you making all that noise.
I'm so sorry.
If you can't read quietly, you'll have to go somewhere else.
Oh.
Oh no, don't tell me. Poor Charlie had to stop visiting the library.
Yes, Faraway, he had to leave all those wonderful books behind. Charlie felt very sad as he walked down the street and into the park. Charlie went to see his friend, the weeping willow tree.
What am I going to do, Willow? If I can't go to the library, I can't read any stories.
But I thought libraries let you borrow books and take them away.
Well, yes, they do. As long as you bring them back when you've finished reading them.
In that case, why don't you borrow some storybooks and read them here?
Here? In the park?
Yes, we trees love hearing stories, and we don't often get a chance.
That's a marvellous idea, Willow.
So Charlie went back to the library and borrowed as many books as he could and hurried back to the park.
Now then, Willow, what kind of a story would you like to hear first? I've got fairy stories, scary stories, funny stories, sad stories.
Oh, no sad stories, thank you. They make me weep.
I've got stories about wizards, giants, spacemen, fairies, kings and queens, pirates and policemen, mermaids and monkeys.
Why don't you just start at the beginning of the first book and go on from there?
Very well. Then let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, in a land far away...
I bet Charlie made the best storyteller ever.
He did. And it wasn't just the trees that liked his stories. People came from far and wide to listen.
And they all lived happily ever after. The end.
Oh,
Thank you, Charlie.
well done.
I really enjoyed being in that story. even though I didn't get to say as much as Sam.
You made a beautiful tree, Louisa.
Oh, thank you, Faraway.
I'd like to hear the end of that story about the wizard and the giant.
So would I. Go on, Sam.
He won't talk.
Don't you want to tell us the story?
Oh dear. I think I've worn his voice out.
Get your listening ears ready. It's time for another story. And now, StoryTree.
Butterfly, butterfly, bird and bee, bring the children here to me. In the branches you will see the magic that is StoryTree. Listen now to stories true, stories old and stories new. Clap your hands now if you're there, and let my stories know you care. Once upon a time, there was a lovely old lady called Mrs. Muddle Mudpuddle. She had very thick glasses perched on the end of her nose, and she couldn't see very well, so she always got herself into a muddle. One day, she decided to get a dog. "I'll go to the dog home and rescue a dog," she said. She bought a lead, a nice dog basket, and some dog food. Oh, but oh, Muddle! She walked straight past the dog home and into the zoo. "This is a funny dog home. It's very large," she said. She heard something in the trees climbing. "What a funny dog! No, I don't want climbing dogs in my house climbing on my furniture." She saw something large, bounding and hopping. "Jumping dogs? Not in my house." "Oh!" she said, turning around. She saw a large snout with sharp teeth. It went snap. "Oh, no, no, no. It'll eat way too much. It'll eat me out of house and home. No, I don't want that dog. I just want a nice little dog." "Oh, that could do," she said. She began to pat another dog. "Oh, no, no, you're much too wet and a very wet nose. I'm sorry, you're too wet and my house will be stinky." "Oh, oh, oh, oh," said the dog. "Oh, you might be a bit big," she said. "No, no, you're much too big for my dog basket." said the dog with flappy ears. Then she saw a man standing behind a glass enclosure. It was a polar bear standing on 2 feet. "Excuse me, sir," she said. "I'm just looking for a nice small dog. Could you help me?" said the polar bear. "How rude," said Mrs. Muddle Mudpuddle. Then she saw something she liked. It was a little black dog with a white bushy tail. "Perfect," said Mrs. Muddle Mudpuddle, and she put the lead on the dog and began to walk out of the zoo. "Stop!" said the zookeeper. "That's not a dog. It's a skunk." "Skunk? What a silly name for a dog. No, I'll call you Rose." Mrs. Muddle Mudpuddle and Rose went back to her house, and Rose couldn't wait to live with Mrs. Muddle Mudpuddle. But that's another story.
Now, more story time on ABC Kids Listen. And now, a story from Grandpa Honeyant.
Grandpa Honeyant Storytime. This book is called Sam's Bush Journey. Sam loved staying with his Nana, except for one thing. Her house was surrounded by bush. Nana liked to take Sam for long walks. But when they got home, Sam's legs and arms would be covered in scratches from the spiky shrubs that grew in the bush. Nana liked to walk deep into the gum forest, but the gum trees shed their leaves and bark, and sometimes they shed their branches too. Sam was afraid that a branch would fall on his head. Nana liked to feed the birds at the waterhole near her house, but it buzzed with mosquitoes. Sam always ended up with itchy red bites that he scratched even in his sleep.
I don't like the bush,
Sam told his Nana.
I'd be happy if it all disappeared.
I hope you'll learn to love the bush one day, Sam,
His Nana said, and she told him about all the good things it had to offer.
The bush gives me a headache,
Said Sam.
I'm going to bed.
When Sam next opened his eyes, he wasn't in his soft, comfortable bed, he was in the bush. He was tired and hungry, and he was surrounded by spiky shrubs, and he had no idea how to get home. Then Sam heard his Nana calling him, and he headed toward the sound of her voice. Sam walked and walked. The further he walked, the more his stomach grumbled. Then he remembered what his Nana had told him.
There's plenty of food in the bush.
When he looked closer at the shrubs, he saw they were loaded with berries. Sam had never eaten berries before, but his Nana had told him which ones to pick. The berries were juicy and delicious. Sam's stomach soon stopped grumbling. Sam kept walking. The sky grew dark and stormy. Thunder rumbled, lightning flashed, rain poured down. Sam was shivering and soaking wet. Then he remembered something else his Nana had told him.
There's plenty of shelter in the bush.
He saw an old gum tree. It was tall and wide with a hollow in its trunk. Sam climbed inside. It was warm and dry and smelt of eucalyptus. By the time the rain had passed, Sam had stopped shivering. The clouds soon disappeared and Sam kept walking. The sun came out. It shone hot and strong. Sam began to sweat. His hair stuck to his head. His mouth was parched and his throat hurt. Then he remembered something else his Nana had told him.
There's fresh water in the waterhole.
But Sam didn't know where to find the waterhole. Then he heard the birds singing. His Nana had told him that birds gathered by the water, so he followed the sound. He was tired and hot and his legs were aching, but he kept going until he reached the waterhole. Sam flopped onto the bank and scooped the cool fresh water into his mouth. Sam was worn out. He curled up in the shade of a tree and closed his eyes. When he opened them again, he wasn't in the bush. He was in his soft, comfortable bed.
breakfast time.
Nana called out from the kitchen. Sam felt like he'd been walking all night, and he ate a huge breakfast.
I'm going to visit the waterhole,
said his Nana after breakfast.
but you can stay here if it gives you a headache.
Oh no,
Replied Sam.
I'd like to come.
The birds at the waterhole made a racket as Sam and Nana arrived.
Why, Sam,
Nana laughed.
if I didn't know better, I'd think they were saying good morning to you.
Maybe they are, Nana.
Sam smiled.
Maybe they are.
And that is Grandpa Honeyant's story time for today, boys and girls. We'll see you next time.
Wonderful listening. And now a story from our friends at Play School. Hello, I'm Alex. Sit back and get comfy because it's time for a story. Today's story is called Little Red Riding Hood's Surprise. One day, Little Red Riding Hood set off through the woods to visit her grandma. Normally she walked very fast because of the wolf, but he was on holiday. So today she took her time. As she walked, she enjoyed the twitter of the birds. Tweet, 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 tweet. The tinkling sound of water in the stream. Splish, splash, splish, splash. And the gentle breeze through the trees. Whoosh, whoosh. Meanwhile, Grandma was getting ready for Red Riding Hood's visit.
Oh, Little Red Riding Hood will be here soon, so I think I'll make a delicious apple pie. Step 1, pick the apples.
So out Grandma went into the garden, but as she went out the back, who should slip in the front door? Do you know who? It wasn't the wolf, he was on a cruise. No, it was the pig. Oink, oink, oink. The pig couldn't wait to get into Grandma's comfy bed. He ran across the room, straight through the basket of clean washing and leapt onto the bed. Unfortunately, he'd collected some of the washing on his way, so now he was a pig in Grandma's clothing in Grandma's bed. He was so comfortable, he quickly fell asleep. Just then, Little Red Riding Hood arrived at the house. She knocked. Knock, knock, knock. But no one answered, so she went in.
There you are, Grandma. Gosh, Grandma, what a loud snore you have.
The pig stirred and sat up.
Grandma, what little piggy eyes you have today. And your nose. It's so unusual.
Just then, as the pig moved about in the bed, his curly tail popped out from under the blanket.
Hang on a minute. Grandma doesn't have a tail like that. In fact, she doesn't have a tail at all. Oh my, a pig in Grandma's bed. What a surprise. But I wonder where Grandma is.
At that moment, Grandma called out from the garden.
Is that you, Little Red Riding Hood? I'll be right in. There you are, Grandma.
Just then, Grandma walked into the room carrying a big basket of apples.
Is that pig in my bed again? Get out of there, you naughty little thing. Hello, darling. It's lovely to see you.
Grandma, I'm so happy to see you.
I've just picked apples to make you a delicious apple pie.
The pig was so excited when he heard the words apple pie that he stood on the bed and danced.
I won't say it again. Get off that bed.
The pig reluctantly got off the bed. Grandma cooked a yummy apple pie, and the pig got some pie crusts and apple peel.
I would have preferred a whole piece. Munch, munch, munch.
And after tea and the delicious pie, Little Red Riding Hood headed for home.
Bye, Grandma. Bye, darling. Bye, Piggy.
Bye, Little Red Riding Hood.
Little Red Riding Hood walked back through the woods and soon she was home. And that's the end of the story. Ah, what super stories. They're going to help me to dream some big dreams tonight. Thank you for listening to Bedtime Stories. Hear more super stories on digital radio and the ABC Kids Listen app. I'm off to bed. Good night.
Oh, how does this music make you feel? How does this music make your body feel like moving? Maybe it makes you want to slow down, like a gentle flowing stream. Can you imagine that you're a leaf floating in a stream? Feel how you drift with the music. Drift gently to sleep with Dream Time from 9 p.m. every night on digital radio or anytime on the ABC Kids Listen app.